Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be installing the front headlight tints. I know we're looking at the rear of the car, but it's getting dark and I'm going to install one of them tonight and one of them in the morning. You guys will see the one in the morning, but wanted to do the intro before I lose one of these on the piece of paper. These are the JXR Performance front headlight overlays. They cover the reflector on the side of the headlight and they make it significantly more aggressive. I highly recommend these. I saw a car with one of these on them and I had to just install it in my car because I was like, you know, super cheap and it makes a massive difference on the headlights. And these headlights, they aren't aggressive enough for me. So hopefully this makes that change, and I'm sure it will because again, I've seen them installed. So, you know, these are the JXR Performance ones. What we're gonna do is a wet installation. You can dry install these, which just means you wanna clean up the front headlight and then just lay them on dry. They do have adhesive on the backing. I'm gonna do a wet installation where I still clean up the headlight and then I use a mixture of soap and water just to make a soapy water compound. And then I'm gonna spray it on the headlight and on the back of these, stick them on wet so I have a little bit of room to play, and then just squeegee out underneath them and then they will be installed. So we're gonna do the wet installation, super quick and easy to do, and these are cheap and they change the front of the car. Let's get it. All right, so I'm aware this is a weird angle, but I think this is the best angle for viewing the installation itself. So what I started by doing is I cleaned up the headlight with some isopropanol alcohol, some soapy water, got this all degreased and all the muck off. I did clean it with a towel that left some fibers, so I was using a microfiber to get those off. So we have a clean installation. And then we have our JXR Performance tint right here that's gonna go on the headlight. So at this step, you could do a dry installation, which just means you're gonna peel this tint off and apply it dry. There's adhesive on the back of the tint. This is totally fine to do. If it is your first time doing it, I would recommend ordering just 2 sets of tint, because if it's your first time doing it, it's a little bit trickier than you'd think, but it's definitely doable. I did, you know, dry installs for my first many tints on my VA WRX, but I've now progressed to doing a wet install, which is a little bit more complicated, but it's also easier. So I'm going to show you guys a wet install, because the dry install, you're literally just placing it on here. Even just my fingerprints, I don't even want those on because they'll show up under the tent. So what I'm going to do is I've got soapy water. I'm going to spray the soapy water. I'm going to spray the back of this, and then I'm going to apply it, and then we're going to use a little bit of a heat gun, and that's basically it. So we're going to spray this down. Try not to spray the camera. So we're spraying this down, and then we're peeling our tint. So we peel the tint off. We're going to spray the tint, get the tint nice and wet. We're going to move our finger on it, spray where our finger was, and we're going to spray this one more time. We're going to get this thing applied and set in place. So one of the nice things about having a wet install is you get some time to work and you get some play, and it's easy. You just want to make sure you don't have any bubbles underneath it while you're installing it. Now, this piece of tint is intentionally designed to be a little bit larger than you need, because you need to bleed it off the bottom of the headlight a little bit, and that's because the headlight actually does get warm and cold. It experiences a lot of temperature, so you want to have a little extra so you can heat it, even though these are pre-shrunk. You can leave it in a hot day or use a heat gun, either or, but it's meant to be right on the line at the bottom. It's going to feel like it's slightly too large, but again, that is intentional. It is intentionally this large, because then you will contour it in the heat. So what you need to check here is you want to make sure your bottom isn't bleeding over the edge, because that'd be a problem. You can always trim if you need to. We're checking the top piece here. We just don't want to have a gap on the top piece. So if the top piece doesn't have a gap and we're not bled over the edge, we're basically ready to install. I prefer it to be pretty tight up front. You know, it feels like if you're looking at it from the side, it feels like you want to push it back. But because you're going to be looking at the car like this and covering the orange, you actually want to have it a little bit farther forward. So I'm going to make sure it's a little bit farther forward. And there we are. I like that place. So I'm just going to take my felt tip. You can use your finger, you can use this, you can use any type of applicator. I just moved it a little bit. That's one of the nice things and bad things about a wet installation. And you're just going to start tacking it down. Our goal here is just to push some of that water out from underneath. And it's still moving on me, so I'm just going to be careful here. And I'm going to start tacking it down, pushing that water out, and as I push the water out, it'll tack it down. Now, depending on how you like this thing installed, you're going to notice a gap. So I like it installed a little bit more aggressively. It's designed to come forward a little bit further. I'm only doing this because I'm going to heat it, so I know that I have the room and ability to do it. but I would say that if you don't plan on heating it, you need to be a little bit more careful with your installation. But again, because I'm heating it, I'm gonna go for it. And we're just gonna apply heat around the edges first so we don't create a temperature barrier. We don't want there to be a temperature shock, essentially. So we're just warming up the area around it. A temperature shock will lift your corners a little bit more. So I like to just slowly warm the edges up. And as we start to warm the edges up, I start to bleed over onto the tint a little bit. And I'm getting a little bit lift where I lost contact, so I'm just gonna go in there with my felt tip and start to tack this down again as it's warm. And then I'm gonna heat it again. And as we heat a little bit, it is still gonna do a little bit of shrinking, which is a way to do this without trimming it. Even though it's pre-shrunk, you can still continue to shrink it. Now, you don't want to over shrink it because that can be bad. But what we're going for here is we're just getting the material warm enough that it is going to start the adhesion process versus letting it sit in the sunlight. So we're just getting it warm enough. And I would say the headlight is probably the most difficult tint to install in the car. It's not hard. It's just as the tints go, it is the most challenging. So what we're doing here is we're just using our thumb, and we're still being gentle. We did a wet installation, so there's still gonna be some time for the adhesion process, but we're just getting some heat. We're trying to get some of that water out so it sits in, and then we're just making contact with the car. And there we go, we're installed. Here's our stock headlight with the reflector visible. As you guys can see, it's really out in front of you. You get that orange through depending on where you are in the car. And then if we flip around, we can see the difference with the blacked out section of the headlight. I think it looks significantly more aggressive. And there we go, guys, installed. Easy to do, cheap modification, and I got a discount in the description for you guys from JXR Performance. They were nice enough to provide that. But this thing looks so much better than it did before. So much better. I'll see you guys in the next video.